Hi and welcome everyone. This is Varleigh at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Saturday, November 9th, 2024. And yes, I said Varleigh this time for those of you who simply know me as Lavender Sky Panther. I go by either, it's fine. Today we're going to do a rather big overview all on crystals. So this is just going to be called Crystals Talk 2024 with Varleigh at Lavender Sky Panther. Now I do have a lot of territory, a lot of ground to cover. As I was putting this show together, I did meditate beforehand, asking for the best and highest messages and vibes to come through as I speak, and may whoever out there, whatever you need to hear, may you hear it today on top of it. So this is going to be a very structured talk. I made flashcards and everything, and I have some detailed notes that I'm going to be partially reading from because I don't want to lose sight of any important things. But also, any intuitive messages that might want to come through, they might flow through. We'll see. They might not. Let's find out. All right. So I do have quite a number of topics to cover. I'm just going to touch on them. Nothing's going to be a super deep look. But if there are any of the items that you just kind of lit you up, or you really enjoyed hearing about and would like to hear more, feel free to email me. I'll put the email in the description area below. I'm also going to be referring to other channels, YouTube channels, to take a look at if you like. And also in general, I just hope this overall talk inspires you to do your own looking into and digging around, literally, for crystals and into crystals. It's a fascinating world, and let's get into it. Okay, so my first little card I prepared is just called Crystal Etymology Defined, and I have an example of a garnet and gold pendant from ancient Greece, somewhere between 2 and 4 BC. And I'm showing that to start off because I like to go back to ancient Greek, getting ahead of, before Roman times, trying to go back to the farthest culture that we have recorded writings from, that we understand, that we can rely on the interpretation. So for right now, I'm just going to go with Christolos from Greek, which can mean frost. For other cultures, it means ice. And for me, it means, if you break down the word crystal, it's like Christ and all, spelled like Chryst, like the Christ or the Christ. And this isn't anything to be religious here. I'm, if anything, spiritual on this channel. But the Christ is like the pure consciousness, thinking of just the Jesus or love example, just call it love. So for me, the crystals are living organisms and a life force, and we'll get into a little bit why, coming up in the show. So anyway, this is just going back to an early piece of, showing garnet. Now, there are other cultures, and I'm going to have to look at my notes as well. Other cultures and quote-unquote ancient history, I still think, haven't been taught like the real story. There's going to be so much more surfacing, I think pretty soon, on the truths of our real past. But in this example, actually, let me prop it here for a minute. In this example, we have a few different cultures represented, and I'm going to use my little sassafras root pointer here. So this is just representing that there are planetary grids back in the Atlantean times, and even going back prior to that to the Lemurian times. And so then we also have, of course, biblical references with supposedly, I'm just using it loosely because for me much in the Bible has been kind of edited to suit certain purposes. Let's just say it's not the pure form of, the intent of the Bible, just pure love, in my opinion. But in there, it talks about, in the Old Testament, a brother to Moses named Aaron, and you can see, I think a lot of people remember that because it's just really cool if you're into crystals. He's wearing a breastplate, and it goes into very specifically what minerals or gems were on that breastplate, representing the quote-unquote 12 tribes. And actually, let me look at my notes too for a second, because I want to get the order right. So if you just, looking at this component, we have, give me a moment to get there. Okay, so it was, kind of called the breastplate of decision. Some people interpret it as the breastplate of judgment. I use decision because that's more in alignment with the ancient Greeks, where the word for judge meant more to decide, or like, kind of deliberate over things, not necessarily hand out a specific quote-unquote judgment. But in this case, the crystal grid is on the breastplate, and in the Bible reference, it says 12 rows consisting of a gold plate with 4 rows of 3 gems. Row 1 is emerald, sapphire, lapis lazuli. Row 2, ruby, topaz, and beryl. Row 3, jacinth, agate, amethyst. Row 4, turquoise, onyx, and jasper. Okay, now hopping back to our first little Greek example, I'm not going to flip the card, but you remember the little sunburst talks about, in my, just what I could pull up in very simplistic research, but I also know it from fact by going into different museums, like the British Museum and others, to see examples of some of these ancient pieces. But I know that with Greek cultures, they did use garnets, citrine, chalcedony, which was soft, I think, to carve amethyst, sapphires, pearls, topaz, and moonstone. Now we get into Roman, which is represented here with this little piece down here. Roman jewelry, ancient. It's very similar to Greek, but also you can add in there emeralds, lapis lazuli, jasper, onyx, amber, diamonds. And they favored gold as well to use, but they also used iron, silver, copper alloys as well. Then I don't have it represented on this card, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. China. Ancient China used jade, malachite, smoky quartz, sapphire, emerald, turquoise, and diamonds. And in there was a reference that in 3rd century BC, China used, the Chinese culture used, ancient Chinese culture used jade cutting, they used diamonds to cut the jade, and into, like, as cutting knives to ward off evil. Then, I don't have it on here as well, but I'm going to just mention it. Viking culture used cornelian rock crystal, almandine is like a garnet, labradorite, iolite, and they worked with bronze, silver, gold, etc., horn, bone, iron, amber, glass, and other things with charms. Then we have the Egyptian culture, so we have the lapis lazuli, and we have a lot of different other types of gems they used in amulets and talisman and jewelry. So they used lapis lazuli, cornelian, gold, turquoise, quartz, emerald, malachite, red jasper, amethyst, and other gems. And here too, this is a very interesting piece. It's an amulet that it's just referred to as the amulet of Charlemagne. I think it's in Reims Cathedral. It's very different from one side to the other, but again using gold and adorned with the gems. Then in the lower corner here is represented a book from the 1500s found in Germany, a small town in Germany. And this had precious gems on the cover of this book. It's really beautiful. And supposedly some are missing because some of them were given, when special dignitaries came into the town, or I guess royals or whoever, gems were given to them or even traded, so that's why supposedly some are missing. And then, we also, I don't have it here, but I thought I put a picture, it might be coming up. But anyway, there's also an example with the coronation crown of England and the scepter, where they have diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, spinels, and other precious stones used, right? And of course, tiaras and brooches and everything else. Okay, so that's just kind of going through the history part of it for fun. And then we'll also be getting to, actual examples of the different stones as well. So bear with me just for the intro though. Then we have crystals and everyday items. So that includes, I'll get to some of these more specifically. You know what, I better just stick with my little script here and go one by one. That's why I have my notes so I don't forget things, right? Okay, so bear with me as I'm just trying to get used to the system where I'm kind of pointing and reading. So we have clocks. I think a lot of you hopefully have heard of the term quartz movement in clocks and watches. And that's because there are actual pieces of quartz within the timepiece, whether it's a clock or watch, that regulates frequencies. So in quote-unquote higher-end watches, I've even seen rubies being used. And so with the quartz movement, let's see, hang on, I think it's on it's on a different page. So with the quartz movement, supposedly there are molecules within the quartz, and they do vibrate naturally, pretty high. And when you apply voltage to it, it vibrates even higher. And they call that piezoelectricity, okay? And let's see, and I'm just going to quote this because I just pulled up what I could rather quickly. Again, this isn't meant to be a real deep look, but just kind of a cursory overview of everything. But it says a quartz watch is a battery or solar cell powered watch, and a quartz crystal vibrates at a certain frequency, regulates the timekeeping. The battery sends an electrical signal through the quartz crystal, and when the electrical signal passes through the quartz crystal vibrates at a constant frequency. It can be about 32,800 times per second. Could be a little higher here or there. This constant vibration is the basis of the movement's timing, regardless of whether the watch has an analog or digital display. Quartz watches differ from automatic watches in that they're usually more accurate and can be self-sustaining for 3 years or more. So it goes on and on, but that's, I think, enough for now. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can just see, some of the components of, of the quartz movement there, and they actually do use a piece of the quartz. Now, actually, I guess now would be a good time to show you a piece of quartz, clear quartz, and here's one example. I have a few on the table here we're going to get to, but here's an example. You know, like its name, it's clear and it's quartz, okay? And it very much is alive, going back to the beginning. That's why there's a lot of life force, and these things are living organisms. The crystals grow, they grow in the ground. Okay, now let me flip back, bear with me. Oh, okay, so everyday items, you know, include things like actually probably more things than you think. If you just go around in your living space or where you like to go, you know, even actually starting with a child with toys. The kaleidoscope was popular in my youth. It has all these little faceted crystals. In modern times they use now maybe glass or other pieces of things in there to create the faceted effect. There's also cooking, you know, salt crystals, rock crystals, right? Rock salt, sugar crystals. And I've got some examples here on the table. I'll just pull up, you know, we got pink Himalayan salt, and we got regular table salt, right? Then we also have, you know, if you've gone to the beach, I have an example here in Siesta Key, Florida. There's a beach of 99 point something percent. It's all pure quartz sand. That's only occurs there in Siesta Key, Florida. It's not far from where one of the recent hurricanes hit. It's very close to Sarasota, Florida, on the west coast of Florida. Also in New South Wales, there's a beach there as well that has even, I think, even higher, you know, near 100% quartz. And I'm just looking to see the name of it because I did write it down. Yes, the Hyams Beach in North South Wales. It's considered to have the whitest sand in the world, but the one in Sarasota is very close behind. And at this time, because we're gonna talk a little bit too, I'm gonna jump back to talking about Lemuria and Atlantis and crystals. I just realized I skipped over that inadvertently. But anyway, you know, it just near this beach in Siesta Key, Florida. There's also a Stargate, supposedly. So we get into a whole galactic component of how the quartz and other, you know, materials were used, and that's why I have to hop back to talk about Lemuria and Atlanta for a moment. Hope you guys don't mind. Before I do that, though, I'm just going to point out this is sand under a microscope, so you can see each little granule of sand has its own character and looks like a gemstone in its own right. It's fascinating. That might be something that inspires you to go ahead and look up different images from under a microscope of sand, okay? And over here is just the Himalayan crystals. Back here is an example of a kaleidoscope. And then, you know, everyday items too include glasses like wine glasses, crystal chandeliers. I have in the back, don't want to make you seasick here with the movement, but I have some glasses. There's some cut glass on that candle container there, and so there's a lot more than probably we even realize that we're exposed to and use every day. So since I said I was going to go back and talk about Lemuria, let me do that in Atlantis because I believe that's important. And let me just scan back and make sure I didn't leave anything else out. No, I just, for whatever reason, hopped over it. I do want to talk about, this is coming from one of my previous shows called Sky Gem Memory, and I'm going to put a link, you know, to everything that I talk about in the description area below too. But I just want to take from the words Wisdom and Spirit of the Day page from that show. It talks about the relics of Lemuria, and the reason why this show is called Sky Gem Memory, and I'm talking about crystals too, is that back in those cultures, which absolutely did exist, crystals were very important, you know, a key element of those cultures or societies, or there's really, that's an improper name to name it. They were at a very high vibration, actually starting with Lemuria, which predated Atlantis. But the reason why I'm bringing it up too is that crystals are known to be memory keeper, storage or memory keeper, and actually there's little ridges on this. I'm not sure if I can catch them quite right in the light. Here we go, maybe here. There's little ridges, and each one of those ridges are, you know, a record, you know, within the crystal. So you can also program the crystals. You can just hold it and put your intention into it of what you might want it to do or use, if you want to use it for healing, or, you know, just any number of uses actually. And there are a lot of great videos out there. I'm not going to go into that right now. If you want to look up how to program crystals and just see what resonates with you. I meant to say at the very beginning of this, anything that I'm showing you and presenting is all coming from my understanding and points of view and perspectives and experiences on these things. But just like, I hate to bring up these ordinary pedestrian examples, but just like selecting a tie or jewelry for women or clothing, it's very personal. And so just because one person says, this crystal's great for doing this or this, I'll get to that later, doesn't mean that that's the only one that can do that, or that you're vibing with that, use for that particular time. It may do nothing for you. So you just got to really use your intuition and see, which crystal just feels right to you for whatever you're looking for. But we'll get to that later. And when I mean what you're looking for, like maybe you want a heart healer, you have a broken heart, they say rose quartz is great for that, but there's so many others. So anyway, that was just a little example. We'll get to it. But back to Lemuria, I just want to read a couple little things about it from my one show from earlier. So the one little excerpt I want to read is: the lost books of Lemuria are written into your DNA. And when you recall, even for a moment, all that you are, its energy is reactivated in this world today. And that's coming actually from another little topic I want to get to. Kind of skipping around, but whatever, we'll get there. There are also lots of oracle cards, that show and depict crystals with different definitions, different uses, and their companion books are also really great. We get into also grid line, how you can grid with crystals, create little grid lines and things. But anyway, I just wanted to just show you, because the thing I just read you comes from the Hidden Worlds Oracle, and I wanted to pull up the card for it. Yeah, so this is just, depicting about the relics of Lemuria, and it goes into crystals, okay? Anyhow, there's program of crystals, and in the Lemurian, we'll just call it a culture for now, crystals played a very important role. That's why you'll even hear, if you're doing some crystal shopping, you will hear about Lemurian Quartz. And this is an example of a really beautiful piece of Lemurian quartz. And in this particular case, I am going to refer you to a wonderful source, a store, if you will, of if you want to order any gems, if you don't do any rock hounding and find them yourself, and you want to find really pure high-vibed crystals, I highly recommend. And I did recommend actually also on that show called, I'm going to just show you the cover of my earlier show, Sky Gem Memory. I'll link it below. But anyway, I do in that show also refer you to this excellent place to get Lemurian crystals, and it's called sacredgemstone.com. And Kelly over there has just some beautiful, beautiful pieces. Just sacredgemstone written all together.com. I'll put it in the description area below as well. But anyway, in a previous show too, I had put it together talking about Lemuria and Lemurian crystals, and I'm just going to read an excerpt from there too, just kind of off camera because it's a little bit glaring. There's so much fascinating information if you look around, even on Kelly's website where I just mentioned, and she also did some channeled messages from Lemuria. But I like, I'm just going to actually read one little line, and I do recommend you go back to my other show, Sky Gem Memory, to read a lot more in the beginning, in the kind of words, wisdom, and spirit of the day section of that video. But I'm going to just quote one thing from her, something she had on her site. It says, it's from an article called Remembering Lemuria, Channeled Messages from Lemuria. So it says, even if your soul did not experience a lifetime in Lemuria, we are all connected to Lemurian consciousness, as we are all part of the Earth's story. Through resonating, meditating with Lemurian quartz crystals, we can activate our light bodies, remember our ancient star origins, and access higher cosmic consciousness to assist our ascension journey. You remember Lemuria and have awakened your cosmic memory. So yes, just as things can be stored in the crystals themselves, there is kind of a time now where collective consciousness is rising up, if you will, in frequency from a 3D to a 5D consciousness. And these, different crystals can assist with that. If you're looking for that or want to connect in, like I just read, like to your star cosmic origins or whatever you like. Okay, so that's one use. And then, actually, I'm not going to get into Atlantean uses, but it is said that they were misused, and that's in part why there was the in part only, there were many reasons why Atlanta crashed and burned, so to speak, but the misuse of the crystals and the power of them in a bigger kind of grid capacity is one reason why it fell. So these can be used responsibly, although I don't really like that word. These can be used with good intent and well, or actually, misused and So let's just we're going to stick with the positive aspects of them for now in this show. Okay, so let's move along. And pardon if I jumped over a little bit out of sequence. Let's get back to it though, and I'll try to stick to the everything else. Okay, so now, I'm going to flip this over. Okay, now we'll talk about jewelry, crystals and jewelry in modern times. So obviously we know we've got things like a diamond ring. Some people say, oh, I don't believe in crystals. Well, there's nothing to believe in crystals about. They come from the earth, and if you believe that God created everything, I think we're all good. So we've got wedding rings, have crystals in them. Many people wear amethyst or garnet or ruby, opals, amber. It can be considered a form of a crystal, even though it's technically a resin. This could also be citrine. This looks like chrysoprase and emerald, perhaps. You know, there's so many things that everybody in modern day wears, just as they did in ancient times. And they are crystals, and they all carry different vibrations. Then we have crystals as divining tools, okay? Maybe you've heard of pendulums, and there's a lot of videos. Anything I refer to that I don't go into detail that you might not be sure about, I invite you to look on your own in more detail. I like looking around on YouTube. You may choose some other platforms. But anything that you have, so we have the classic pendulum shape here, you know, is one of the classics, right? That just looks like probably clear quartz crystal. Then we have something that maybe looks a little more blade shaped over here. That's probably, I don't know if that's an emerald or what that one is, but this one happens to be jade from New Zealand. And actually I have an example here too, and this is in a form called a toki, okay? But anyway, you can use this. You can use a chain pull from the end of a fan. You know, it can be spherical or faceted or whatever, you know, dangles. You can use that as well for pendulum. And here's one too. Here's just one that you could, you know, make your own, kind of put it as lapis lazuli, put it on a chain or whatever. And then in this case, this one happens to be citrine, raw, kind of raw, with a little bit of faceted touch to it. Actually, yeah, it's actually faceted the point, but they left the rest raw. And so this is pretty cool too. And I don't actually want to, I can't really show you how it works because I'm holding the camera. I don't have it on tripod. But, you know, find any of the other videos that do talk about it, that do click with you. Now, we're coming into this age of ascension, not age, but it's time of where ascension is kind of quote unquote ramping up. So you're going to find a lot of other channels popping up like on YouTube and elsewhere that are talking about things of the divine, of divining tools, of crystals, of all kinds of things that really kind of connect people. And spiritually, just use your inner kind of discernment, as they say. Use your little inner radar. If something kind of seems off, it might be. Though there are many beautiful channels out there with high vibrational, great intent in delivering messages about all these things that a lot of us are coming into or have been learning or experiencing for decades now. There are maybe some with kind of not so good intent and agenda coming in and presenting things on YouTube and other platforms to try to mess people up. So if it's something sounds kind of negative leaning and you're like, what? You know, go with that. Trust your intuition. You know, even anything I say, you're like, I don't click with that. Well, then toss it. You know, anything that does click with you, take it and build on it further, you know, through your own experiences and your own digging in and researching and checking into things. Okay. All right, so now we talked about, you know, pendulums, just a touch, and now we'll look to, I mentioned earlier, we have oracle cards. And oracle cards, you know, there's a bunch of different decks, and just as I just mentioned about keying into your intuition, you also want to do that with different card decks. If you pick one up and it feels dark, and I'm not saying pick any of these up, I actually don't have any of these. I just picked them for the images, just, you know, for talking point. They may be just lovely. I just have not picked them up and looked through them myself. In this case, one talks about crystal spirits, meaning like little beings in there. Good ones, good vibes. And then this one just is probably like another deck I have that I do have and I've picked up good vibes from, is the Daily Crystal Inspiration deck. And I'll reference these in the description area below, everything I talk about that I can. And this one is on a white background. You see that this one's on a, you know, black background. And this one just is, I like it because it's very clean. You really see, it's kind of almost like crystal flashcards. I actually highly recommend this if you're really interested in knowing what each crystal is and what it can do. I'm going to just touch on a few here and there as I go through the rest of this show. But if you want to get into it further, you can use this fun little deck or something similar. I'm not promoting anybody in particular, but it just seems high vibe, very, very clear photographs of each thing, and the messages are pretty good. So in this case, it says Amazonite, and it says loosen your grip, right? And there are plenty of other messages too. So actually, let me take this as a moment to show you a real piece of Amazonite, if I can. I'm looking across my table, pardon me. It's going to be a fun show that skips all over the place, but hopefully you can stay with me. Okay, so here are a couple of representations, let me put this one's better, of Amazonite. Now they say loosen your grip, and there's a whole message involved with that. But Amazonite has a lot of good uses. Some say it's great against, can help you heal or lessen pain with any kind of tooth-related things. Now, of course, there's also herbs and other natural things that help you too. I think people report like clove and other things. But in the crystals world, Amazonite is supposedly good. Now, I have not personally used it in that capacity, but it can't hurt. Some say that if you even sleep at night, you can put it near your pillow, near where your face, your teeth would be, and that the vibrations and the properties in there can really help. And especially if you also look further into programming crystals, or you just talk to it and hold it in your hand. You say, thank you for being with me. And, I'm looking for the healing of my tooth or jaw, whatever area you're looking at, and kindly help me. And you put it near you, and you may see some nice results from it, right? Or at least it may help. And that's just one example of maybe playing around with some of these crystals. What calls to you now, they say, some people say it does work with teeth. It's just as an example, but maybe you look at it and you're like, it's not doing anything for me. I don't feel that would work for the teeth. But say you look at something else over here, and I'm just going to pick a random example, not that it does work, it might, but I'm just like, oh, you know what, this one's calling to me. I think if I place this near me, that will be the one. I'm just feeling it. That's what you go with. Okay, all right. So I'm not going to go through each of these cards just for time's sake on this particular video, but I'll just kind of move through, actually, here. Let me move through a little bit, like, so, they show you Moonstone as an example, live your purpose. Then we have Smoky Quartz, let it go. And we go on and on with some very interesting examples. Celestite, it says soothe your soul. That might be a good one at dream time. Okay, and just because we did call out Smoky Quartz, I have a piece right over here. And this is a Smoky Quartz. And I'm sorry, I don't have a white background, but anyway, you can maybe see it. It is smoky. It looks like a smoky brown. Now, this is said to work wonders and do really good things for the liver area. So, say you have somebody with ailments in the liver, you might want to put this, especially like if they're in the hospital or whatnot, or in a room where they're trying to recover, you might want to put it on their bedside. If not, laying it on the area of, where they have the ailment. And we're going to get into that. There's a whole little section of this talk too about healing with crystals, okay? Because they are something that has a vibration, okay? Actually, that's funny. My card just flew there. So if you need to reach me later on, I'll put this in the description area below too. But if you have any inquiries about what I might be able to do and help in the way of working with crystals, you can reach me at lavender.skypanther@gmail.com. Okay, I did not plan that. The wind literally blew it over here. Okay, so now let's look further and see where else we're going to go with this all. So now we talked about oracle cards, and actually that was just one deck. Here's another lovely deck that talks about pairing crystals with herbs and flowers and other things. Tells you what earth elements are involved and beautiful messages. That's the Earth Alchemy Oracle. And I did just pull whichever ones, kind of called to me. This one includes pearl, and pearl is considered in the kind of gemstone family. And then we have petalite and Herkimer diamond and snowdrop. So Herkimer diamond, a lot of people are coming into right now. And there's a lot of great properties there. Again, with a deck like this, it covers some beautiful messages plus some nice facts about crystals and what they can do. And I recommend with any of these things, if there's a crystal you like, look it up and just type in healing properties of that crystal and be amazed at what they can do. Okay, now here is another deck where we get into, it's called Crystal Grid Oracle. And we get into gridding, and we'll talk about that coming up in a bit. But anyway, you can also align and kind of create your own little masterpieces and kind of just go intuitively once again with any crystals you may have and create these different grids. Now this one, it's epidote or epidote. Somebody created this. They're calling that, with the intention that they created it, is for manifestation. There's one maybe you want to do for channeling. Somebody here used black phantom quartz. Then things like inspiration. There's chrysanthemum stone, and that's a really cool stone with crystal properties in it that I'll show on a flashcard coming up. Okay, then there's so much more. I just pulled some just to get you familiar. Again, just this is kind of an overview, and there's just so many more fun things to get into with all of this. I hope you're finding it as well, if you don't already know all about it. All right, so now let's look at, oh, you know what? Please bear with me. I'm going to skip around a bit because I might have forgotten to mention something on one of the points, and I see something important I want to bring up. One of my other little categories here in the Divining Tools section is crystal balls. And there is a great YouTube channel, Tarot by Isabella. I'll put it, again, I'll reference anything I say, I'll put in the description box below if I'm referencing somebody else. And there's one particular video called A Message from the Obsidian Crystal Ball, and she has a number of different kinds of crystal balls. They don't have to just be clear quartz like people think of fortune tellers telling fortunes back in the day. These are just divining tools, you know, like pendulums and cards and crystals. They're just ways to kind of go into a soft meditation and bring some connected messages through from the divine or from our higher self or our spirit team and whatever of high vibration. She has a number of crystal balls. She has obsidian, fluorite, labradorite, amethyst, rose quartz, citrine, and clear quartz. All right, now let's go to shapes, crystals. Go back to my little cards. Okay, now we're going to look at, give me a moment to organize. Okay, crystals, shapes, forms, and figurines. So on this little flashcard, it's just here to kind of prompt me, to remind me, to give you the actual examples. These are just a few I pulled off the internet and possibly had, of my own. But let me get into it. So in the corner, we have a palm stone. I have some examples of palm stones on the table. So I have Caribbean calcite here. There's selenite palmstone, jade, African bloodstone, and over here, sorry, I'm trying to go slow so I don't make you seasick. Over here I have some Presley bluestone. So pretty much if you can just think of a crystal, there's going to be a palm stone available if you'd like it, okay? And they're nice because, depending on the size and the weight, you can just almost maybe, feel it. It does fit in the palm. And it's just one way, like if it feels good to you, then that's a shape you may want to look into, in acquiring if you don't have any already. Then, of course, we have figurines. Those can be fun. You know what? I forget which gemstone this is. And bear with me. I'm just trying to organize stuff here. Let me bring them over. I'm just going to put them on the card itself for a second. Okay. Just an example. These happen to be small. There's also some really big ones. So this is a blue goldstone, a little turtle. You can see it, nice little carved. These are tiny. This is a Moomin from the book, The Moomins. And if you want to look into that, I cover that on another reading. It's a book by Tova Jansen, and they're really cute little Moomin trolls. They're good little guys in the book. And then this one is a llama. Somebody gifted me. I think that one's amethyst. So anyway, you can also look into what do you like. You like dragons, cats, anything that, you're kind of thinking of. You might as well think of a little figurine and pair it. Over here, this is a rhodonite unicorn, but they also have any number of shapes. Here is an elephant, too, made out of opalite, right? And then we have a heart shape, sorry about that, a heart shape and labradorite with a nice flash to it. So there's also flame shape, there's freeform. Freeform is what I have here, is in this orca agate. I love this one. This orca stone is just really beautiful. And of course, orca because it looks like an orca or a killer whale. And that one particular one comes from Madagascar. Okay, so those are shapes. That was a little bit of a freeform. I'm trying to think, yeah, I have another little freeform one here too. It's rhodonite with some other things in it, a little bit of quartz and something else in there. It's really beautiful. Rhodonite. It's beautiful properties as well. Trying to see if I have any other freeform. Yeah, this one too. This is aventurine, sorry. And that's a bit of a freeform. And again, with all of these, just kind of hold them. And I talk about sourcing later. I might skip out of order. But yeah, you can go to an actual store, a metaphysical shop. You can just do an internet search, metaphysical store that has crystals. Crystals are popping up in any number of places. Some are real, some are not. So in this case, I think this one has been colored, or dyed. So you could just have to see. But actually I didn't mind it anyway, because it just felt right in the hand. So don't worry if things are artificial. It's always good to go by feel. How does this feel to you, a particular stone? And they all do, just still, even if it were dyed, it is some kind of stone with some kind of frequency and life force in it. So again, it's just all about, here, I'm going to just zoom up here for a minute, or move over here for a minute while I organize the cards a bit. And actually, I'm going to start a new pile. Hold on, give me a minute. After I do this card, I'm going to move them over as I organize stuff so things don't get sloppy. Okay, so now let's move on. Oh, you know what? No, not quite yet. I didn't cover some of the shapes and forms. So there's also towers, like this selenite tower, and they're points, or point generators, they call them. And they have a very different application, which you'll find if you move into kind of healing with crystals. You can hold it in your hand and move it in a certain motion and direct the energy more with a point. I don't really click with these so much for whatever reason. I find them interesting, but the form, it's kind of like an obelisk form, I just don't click or resonate with, as they say. This one happens to be kyanite, I think, with a little bit of ruby in it. Okay, and another form in shape is egg. This one happens to be faceted. I think this one's onyx. It's faceted, but of course there are egg shapes that are not, that are just smooth. And this is a friend that was loaned for this presentation. I don't know, I just don't click with the egg shape when it comes to crystals. Here's another free form that is Dalmatian jasper. Okay, and I'm trying to think, and then we get into spherical, so I don't forget. Oops, sorry. This is, I think, carnelian or orange calcite. You know what? I think it's got a little bit of both in there. This one is a tiger's eye sphere. It's very pretty. There's some flash in there, but I'm losing my daylight. It's getting dim, or it's cloudy. There's daylight, but it's cloudy. Hang on. Oh, this one is a beautiful sphere of Rhonite. And again, when I rattle these off, I'm not going to get into their properties, especially healing properties or metaphysical properties, but I invite you to look up anything that you have interest in that I've mentioned on your own further. Then there's actually, I'm called to bring this one over to, and I'm probably not going to get to every single gem on this table, but this is called pistachio opal. And I learned from one wise woman that this can be carried like in your pocket and can help you kind of stay off the radar and visible energetically if you don't really want to kind of draw any attention to yourself. Or I heard her mention once that it could even be used if you wanted like extra protection walking on the street and you don't want to be noticed, that type of thing. Okay, now does it really do that? Well, for some people it might. And as I said before, again, just see what stone might click with you for that intention. It might not be this one for you. It might be something totally different. Okay. All right. Let's now I'll move on. And again, even if I've kind of inadvertently passed over something, we'll maybe cover it in another show. There are other forms, like a thumb, like a worry stone, thumb size, with a little depression in it that you run your thumb over. And there are wand-shaped ones, and what else? And just the simple everyday pocket rock. You're just walking along the beach or whatever, you pick up a stone, and that counts as some, not technically, I guess, a crystal, depending on what it's made out of, though. It might be comprised of smaller crystals, but, just picking up a simple rock and holding on to it can bring you a lot of luck. And again, it's about putting your intention into it. All right, now let's look at crystals' scientific properties. Okay, there are frequencies, scientifically measurable things of all the different types of gemstones. There's a specific gravity to it, a refractance index, there's chemical formula for them, vibrational numbers, a hardness scale. Mohs hardness scale is typically the one that is used, etc. So here's my little flashcard for that. Okay, so we've got Mohs hardness scale. Each crystal does have a number assigned to it as far as its hardness. And of course, we know, like a lot of softer minerals or stones would be talc, gypsum, calcite, kind of in that area of it. moving all the way up to diamond, right? We always talk about diamond, even drill bits, because it's got like diamond particles that are really hard to cut through stuff, right? Ruby is also kind of at the upper end of that scale. And then we have chemical compounds and formulas. I'm not going to read them out loud, but that's if anybody's really totally into the scientific compound formulas and patterns that they make. You know, you can go off into that and do an entire talk just based on that alone, correct? All right. Now, when we talk about some of those properties too, this is just coming from a book of one of the crystal sources, and it also talks like an example of like quartz, rough quartz, clear quartz, coming from the ones coming from Madagascar. It's saying it comes from the silicate silica. You have the chemical formula, the gravity, the hardness, the index for refractance, and all of that. But then it also says, you know, for the primary chakra, for the metaphysical properties, it says it applies to all. Astrological sign, it says it applies to all, and it has a vibration number of 4 from the metaphysical standpoint, okay? So anyway, there's a lot to these things, natural, and then we can get scientific with it, and spiritual. Now, let's look at crystal sourcing. Here's my other reminder card. Crystal sourcing, and for this I'm not going to go too much into it other than just saying there are ethical and non-ethical sources when you get your crystals. How can you know? Well, if you hold one, you might feel some kind of energy to it that doesn't feel quite right, or you simply may not know. And so if you are actively looking for some, just maybe take that extra step to make sure they're coming from an ethical source, meaning there's not you know, people, men, women, and children kind of under slave labor type conditions, you know, mining these things. That's what we're talking about. So try to find one where you know it's a reputable company if you're not going to go and mine them yourself, and that nothing like that is involved, okay? And then even if you don't know and you've purchased some crystals, you can always hold them and, you know, hold them and bless them, and ask that they be cleared from any negative energies, or that, you know, you can also bless them and where they came from, including each and every soul or individual that might have touched or helped, you know, bring them from that whole chain, from taking them out of the earth to reaching your hands. Bless everybody that has ever, you know, touched them, and raise the frequency. We can absolutely do that. And then you can bring your crystals into neutral and, you know, proceed with a good conscience on it, okay? Now, let's see what else. Let's see what comes next. We have, now we'll get into the different types. If you are going to go and get a crystal, get crystals, or they are gifted to you and you want to know more. So we have them that they come in the rough form. What does that mean? Well, quite simply, I'll show you some examples here. You know, these are all rough. So that means that they were just coming out of the earth. They're not the, you know, the really smooth kind you might see on jewelry, right? They're just left rough. You see kind of like the natural crystal composition in there. Versus here, this is a good example. This is amethyst, so it's purple, you know, it's beautiful. Here's one that's called tumbled, because if it's not rough, we're going to get into it next. It's called tumbled, where it's spun around with some medium and it becomes really smooth, like polished. So this is also amethyst, but now you see it's just smooth. And this is called chevron amethyst because there's like a chevron pattern in it. Anyway, I hope that's not blurry, but here we go. All right, so just rough and polished, you can see the difference. One's more shiny and one's more just, well, like you would think, coming out of the earth, right? Now, some also that come out of the earth, they may be rough, but they're not like very natural, because you'll see some hard edges where somebody might have used a pick and, you know, cut them out, versus when they're just found in the ground, which actually I think it's the Navajo or one of the Native American tribes, probably several Native American tribes, say that if you're going to get your turquoise, it's really in the sacred way. You're just supposed to find it on the ground or in the ground, where it's easy just to pick it up. You're not supposed to go actively, you know, mine it out. And that's for, you know, highest blessings and whatnot. Okay. And anyway, that's a whole nother world of interesting things to look into, of what different cultures believe the properties of the different stones, you know, what kinds of things they bring. Okay. Now we'll go to the, you know, the tumbled ones, and we just talked about the difference. I already kind of covered that too. And it just means they're polished up real nice. To me, some people just, if you can even polish them yourself. You can take a rough rock and then polish it. There's just have to use some grit, some water, and a polisher to make that happen. I don't think it's too overly complex. I haven't done it myself, but I know it's pretty simple. There's basic equipment for it. Here's some examples of more polished ones. I'm going to just move the camera over here. Okay, so actually let me get my little wand so I can tell you what some of these are. These are just beach stones thrown in the mix. But here we have sodalite, the amethyst that we just talked about, Dalmatian jasper, and I think I'll just leave it at that. We covered some of the other stones earlier, but that's what they look like. They're nice and polished and smooth. I think this is Amazonite down here. Okay, all right, now let's see what we have next on our little list. And now we're going to get into a fun topic. Actually, I got to flip these over too. Crystals. And now we get into geodes and druzy. Those are fun. So when we're talking about geodes, we're talking about what appears just to be a solid rock, but you crack it open in half and it has kind of like a cavern in there, or like a cave-like quality, a hollow quality. This particular example is showing citrine, and over here, I can't remember which gem, but that has druzy over it. So it's little kind of really tiny crystals that make things look sparkly. So I'll give you an example of these two. I'll pull them over to us instead of, it's off on the table. So here's an example where the outside of your rock just looks like a rock, but you break it open and then you would see, this. In this case, it's amethyst. And, here I'm just giving you an example to see if you had a more, full rock. This is just a fragment. But you can see the level of the crystals. They're kind of chunky and larger, Now, druzy, they aren't as large. So with this example on this side of my flashcard, this is an example of druzy coming from Morocco. And it's very fine. They're very small little teeth. Some say that means it's new growth crystal, and that can be really, really powerful. Okay, I'm going to give you a reference of a YouTube channel when we get to the healing section, and he even, kind of to energize his crystals uses, I think, the similar druzy, and just places like a crystal on it just to give it even more good power and vibes to it. So again, when you start looking on your own at some of these different channels, you're going to see a lot of different ways that people use crystals, and you just have to go with what makes the most sense to you. Okay, I'm going to move these over here for a minute because we're going to start with a new pack. Okay, so now let's look at natural versus artificial crystals, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The artificial ones will be Labmade. Those are your things like I don't want to give this particular company attention, but it's a big one that starts with an S, and everybody wears these crystals as jewelry. I think this is actually even one example somebody gifted me once. So some of these are just simply, they're beautiful, but they're lab made, right? But they can absolutely be beautiful and look like the quality of other crystals. Also, similar company makes something like this. This happens to be a barrette with all these little crystals in them. Okay, so we have lab made versus natural crystals coming out of the ground. And I'm just trying to see, well, going back to our amethyst example, since we've been talking about amethyst, this is in the picture amethyst. This is representing something lab made up here in the picture. But look at here's also what's called a slice. I didn't get to that, but just a slice or slab of these gems. So look at, we got this, we got the rough stone. Let me just pull them all out for comparison. We've got polished, and then we have the geode. So that's a nice, neat little comparison in the world of amethyst for you, for the different types and presentations of these things that you can find. And again, in this case, which one calls to you? Again, like I mentioned, there are times where I really love tumbled stones, and there are times where I'd really rather hold on to a geode, for example, or use the slab and place it somewhere. And again, we get more into that and different uses of some of these things when we get into healing applications of the crystals, or potential ones, right? Just like there's every different kind of body out there, different crystals will click with you and not with others, and vice versa, right? Just depends on you and your frequency at the time and your body. All right, so let's see. That is natural versus Labmade. Oh, and that applies to diamond rings too. I don't have any here on the table, but a lot of people, you know, the old way of thinking, not that it's bad, is just, oh, you hang on to your diamond and then you can go sell it and get a lot of money. Well, now in these days, they're making really excellent quality lab-made diamond rings, and so the market has kind of fallen, at least last time I checked, where if you try to turn in your authentic diamond, you're like, you know, value's gone down because we already have cheaper, you know, lab-made ones. Anyway, that's just a little aside. Okay, then, real fun category, which I don't have any examples here because this is cave-sized crystals. So there are giant crystals out there, and you may have seen this. This was really popular, gosh, quite a few years ago I first saw this show up. I'm not a fan of the source of where it came from, but let's just say it came from a very big mainstream, you know, prized photographic kind of magazine type of thing that showed up about there being larger than life-size crystals. I mean, in the center here is a man standing there. So to give you a size of the scale of these things, you can only imagine what kind of energy would be coming off of those things if you were that person standing there. So there are giant ones. This one is an example in Mexico and Nica. It's called the Cave of Crystals. It's located in a mine which also has silver, zinc, and lead, and it's in the, if I say this correct, the Chihuahuan Desert, and it's a semi-arid region in Mexico. And the cave is made of limestone, and let's see, it's just saying that limestone is a type of rock formed from the remains of marine organisms. That's true. And that this particular Nica mine, they're saying, is at least I don't know if this can be relied on, but they're quoting that it's 260 million years old. Okay, but anyway, the point about these giant crystals is it's no accident, quote unquote, that it's being discovered now and coming to light that we know about some of these things now, because this again is kind of talking about the ancient memory of things like Atlantis, where there were huge, you know, massive earth stabilizing crystal grids and crystals in the earth, and they had the knowledge of how to use these things. So again, when you're looking to Siesta Key off of Florida near Sarasota, it's all quartz. You know, you gotta, you know, think that that's probably coming from things coming up from the inner earth. Though if you look at mainstream, they'll say, oh, somehow those minerals fall, I mean, those crystals come down from Appalachian mountains. Well, Siesta Key is on the west side of the Gulf Coast. I highly doubt that. So my theory I'm presenting is no. Those crystals on that beach, they're coming up somehow from inner earth, or, you know, within the ocean from within the earth or something. Not Appalachian. Just not buying that one, but see what you think and feel and intuit on that yourself. Okay. Then, so we talked about bigger land, you know, earth stabilizing crystal grids. There's so many other examples, and also wherever you find silicas and the sand mix of minerals like black lava sand beaches in Hawaii, New Zealand, Iceland, Puerto Rico. There's just all kinds of these really anomalous kinds of beaches and things that, you know, people go there, you know, often for vacations and things, not by accident. It feels good walking on these things, and anytime you walk along the beach, the energies of the sand and crystals and silicas and quartz and everything else in there sends vibrations up through your feet into your spleen and up through your body. That's why it is so good, and everybody usually loves to walk on a beach, correct? Especially barefoot. Okay, now we'll kind of dovetail now into healing properties and methods. And again, there are some really good YouTube channels that go into depth on these things, and this is just my little overview. So I will refer you to there's a YouTube channel, Mark Bayersky, and he talks about crystal healing. How do crystals help you heal mind, body, and soul? And I'm going to link that below. And he actually has a beautiful take on crystals and has worked with crystal healing himself for decades. And I like the knowledge that he has to share, so I'm just recommending you check that out as well. Okay, also, before we get into that, strictly healing properties, as we start that, some people, and I just recommend to do this safely and research it on your own as well, of course. Let me just see where I have this. Hang on. Oh, you know what? I jumped pretty quick through. I didn't even show you my neat little reference card for planetary earth grids, but we've already passed that. So now we'll get into crystals healing properties and methods. So just as a start, Some people do this. You know, I never felt like that would work for me, but I'm going to bring it up anyway in case it works for you. There are safe containers and kind of drinkware that has like a little compartment where you can do this safely. You can drop a crystal into water and then have a little separation membrane so you don't, you know, drink the crystal when you drink the water. But some say that those crystals, it can be a combination of crystals, charge the water, and then you drink it in and you can harmonize with that frequency. Obviously make sure the crystal has been cleaned, you know, just set it in water, you can set it overnight, you know, rinse it, maybe put it out in the daylight or, you know, moonlight, however you like, and just put the intention that it's clean and purified, okay? Some people warn that, oh, but it might be coated in chemicals. I think as long as you just take effort and put the intention in that it's, you know, pure and clear and safe for you to put into your water to charge, is good enough. You know, we're talking like you might want to use these sized crystals. You know, you throw it in the bottom. Again, find the container that has like a little section where it will just filter it out where you can't possibly accidentally drink the crystal. Or if you want to be super careful, you have it at the bottom. You don't drink out the entire glass. You know, you can try doing it that way as well. But some people think it brings them health benefits if they do that, and absolutely does for them. I just, you know, I don't feel like really playing with it that much. But of course, there's so many other ways to heal with crystals. So also, we're looking at the colors with healing. There's a thing called color therapy, as we all know. If you wear a certain color shirt one day, you might be feeling, you know, in one kind of mood and you want to wear black. You might be really peppy and you want to wear pink or purple, that kind of thing. That applies to crystals and the psychology and the frequencies of healing. They do align with the chakras as well. So what do we know with the chakra colors? The most basic ones are the colors of the rainbow. They do the little acronym ROY-G-BIV to remember. So, you know, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, blue, indigo, violet, right? So as we move up with the chakras, the root chakras are going to be your reds. Yellow for the solar plexus, you know, there's orange in there as well before you get there. Green and pink, you know, just happen to have some right here, are for the heart chakra. There are two colors, green and pink. And then you get into blue. I'm trying to think for the throat chakra. And one example here I'd like to bring up because it's a great one. When you look at the healing properties and just the properties of chrysocolla, that's a beautiful stone. So blue. And then lapis lazuli, we covered before, you know, is very blue for the throat chakra. And there's so many other ones. If you want to go in the more powder blue, celestite version, have a better example of sodalite. But anyway, sodalite also has blue in it. Anyway, you get the idea, right? And then you get into your violets, you got your amethysts, and actually this ring is charoite. You know, it's purple. I don't know if you can see that, right? And there's a lot of other purple stones, lepidolite, I think it's called, if I said that correctly. So lots of purple stones to look into, you know, for the different chakras. So that also applies with healing. And there are chakras and meridians that align with the organs, and with that are different frequencies that you can further translate into a stone. I already covered smoky quartz aligning with the liver, you know, any liver ailments. But there's so many other stones that apply to so many other parts of the body. You know, I did cover it too. If the heart is aching, you're having a problem, heartache or physical heart stuff, some people find rose quartz to be helpful. To me, there's just something about rose quartz that just doesn't cut it for me in heart issues. So me personally, I would probably go towards something more like rhodonite or rhodochrosite, which is a little bit different looking than this, but similar. Maybe a little more pale pink, okay? Actually, somewhere on this table, I probably have it, but we'll get to that later. Actually, hang on a second. I think I have it. Give me 1 second. I believe that might be the rhodochrosite. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So with the healing, we have by color, and by association, there's a vibration associated with that. We also have different energies relating to all of that. So let me get into this. I'm gonna throw out some other crystals according to the rainbow, right? The little healing rainbow, the chakras. We have red jasper, carnelian, orange calcite, yellow jasper, citrine, chrysoprase is a beautiful green one for the heart, green opal, green jasper, emerald, jade, green peridot. We have for the pinks, rose quartz, pink opal, rhodonite. Chrysocolla blue I just showed you. There's also celestite sodalite. I talked about that. Lapis lazuli and sapphire for throat chakras. Amethyst, yeah, I think I wrote it wrong. Lepidolite and charoite are covered. And then yes, we get higher up to the crown chakra. We have clear quartz, hirosol, opalite, selenite, diamond, and the like. Okay, so there's a lot to look into, and again, I recommend that video that I'm going to link below for a nice overview on how to heal. Just that's a whole nother video that I could do in and of itself. Okay, then with crystals and healing, what do we also know? There are bath crystals, right? So, you know, these have become popular recently, like they call them bath bombs. There's little crystals of things in there for healing. That's actually lavender at the bottom. Then we have actually just straight up bath salts or salt scrubs, right? This is also another lavender salt scrub, right? Just kind of in a little carrier oil for that. So we have healing by like sitting in a tub, correct? With our bath crystals and different things. Let me just see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, also I covered pink Himalayan salt before. You can even put that or Epsom salts in the bath. There's also a food grade. I just learned recently a food grade Epsom salt, but I would definitely research that a lot on your own. I don't really know anything about that. I just know it exists. If you wanted to look at things internal and not just external with the crystals, right? With the healing. And then we also know that there is healing for pets as well with crystals. I actually did do a pet healing session and on a dog who had an injured paw and also the arm and leg, and I worked with like what the dogs seem to harmonize with and want near it. So I do energy healing work and put the different crystals near the pet. And that particular pet, adorable one, really liked rose quartz, the clear quartz, hirosol, amethyst, amazonite, black tourmaline, and even a geode. So it's very interesting. And again, I'll refer you back to that other YouTube channel for the healing until I maybe get into it more. If anybody wants to hear more about it, I'll do a video. Okay, I already jumped around and covered the crystal memory. Let me put that down here. Okay, this is actually a better example. I was trying to show you on the crystal itself here, right? But this is what I was talking about, these little ridges. See these? You'll see these ridges on some clear quartz and Lemurian quartz, and it said that each one of those lines is holding a record or memory. Okay, it can be ancient or you know, more recent. I guess it's all relative depending on how old that crystal is, right? And how long it's grown. And we talked about, you know, putting your intention into it, and there's a number of ways people do that and program them. And I invite you to look on that more on your own, but that's that whole tangent I went on with the Lemurian and Atlantean discussion. Okay, then we have crystals for protection for your personal field on your person. This happens to be just a beautiful example off the internet, but this is, I believe, an obsidian with a little bit more of the, actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's obsidian, in rough matrix a bit. But sometimes it's just, you know, holding a chunk of stone. So the example that I have in person is, I love this. This came from a rock and gem show by, you know, Mineralogist Society, and they actually did their own rock hounding, and this guy got this in California. And the weight feels great, and I love that you can just see it, you know, from its natural state. And it just feels good in the hand. And this is for protection, personal protection. It absorbs negative energies. And it just feels like, yeah, nothing can daunt this thing. It's going to absorb and like nobody's business and still be of a higher vibration. So you can put this near your nightstand. You can, you know, put it in a bag. You know, if you've got like a messenger bag or something, you want it on your person. It's just again goes back to intuitively, when you go look at these things, does it feel good? Usually black stones, unless it's this black tourmaline or black lava. I had a black lava kind of bead bracelet. I don't have it out here on the table. But unless it's those black stones, I don't really click with them all that much. So again, that's why it's so personal. Some people can say, oh, but black stones are great for absorbing. Well, if you told me to put this nearby me, I'm like, no thank you. It may absorb, it's onyx, it's a black stone, to absorb negative energies, but it's just not jiving with me, right? And for somebody else, it's like, oh, I want that, that's perfect, right? So it's very personal in the crystal world. Okay, So there's personal protection. Some people even put maybe, you know, a size like this. Probably tumbled stone is better for this than rough stone. But, you know, for the ladies out there, some people even just put this in the bra, put it in the strap or wherever else it will be where it doesn't hurt you, and, you know, carry it with you there, right? Or just in your pocket for the gents, or both, you know, everybody. And then you have it on you, you know, personally, right? I do carry a couple just in the bottom of my everyday kind of purse or bag. It just makes me feel good. Plus, you may not know, you never know. You may run into a situation where somebody's having a moment. Let's just say somebody's having stress or anxiety, and suddenly it happens. Somebody's doing that right in front of you. This has happened to me. That's why I'm saying I use that as kind of my little spiritual toolkit. Somebody was kind of freaking out, couldn't handle life too well. Might also have been something to do with some, you know, prescription kind of medication. So I grabbed the stone out of my bag. I also had some essential oils, and I got to just calming the person down and having them hold the crystals. So you never know. Might help just not only you, but others, right? Okay, I know I'm moving all over the place a little bit, so let's keep moving along. Then we talked about kind of protection and gridding. Oh, we talked about kind of planetary gridding. Then there's also just gridding your surrounds, okay? So in the case of the oracle cards that we looked at earlier, let me get to some ones that I didn't show you, just for variety. You know, there's like, you know, you can just create these little grids. And I would do it right now, but as an example, but I think we're going to be, I don't want this video to get too long, but technically, you know, I could just grab any of the little stones on this table and start making a grid, you know, just like these people. So typically, I think there are many ways to do it, but you start with the center stone and the intention, and then you just kind of radiate out with all different little shapes. And there's a great YouTube channel called Kristen's Crystal Grids, and I'm going to put a specific video linked below. And she even does these out on the yard, you know, outside in the garden, and adds flowers and other beautiful things with the beautiful vibrations to the crystals. And she goes over a lot of the crystals and what they do, so that's why it's great, another great channel to take a look at. So you can do them in your yard. You can do these little grids just, you know, wherever you are. And also there are sourcing places like that, sacredgemstone.com. She also has complete little grid sets available with very high vibrational stones in it, and you can create your own. But then if you don't want to do it like this, you know, kind of fancy, excuse me, I have to reposition the camera. So if you don't want to do stuff like that or on a bigger scale, it can also be something very simply as far as gridding and protecting where you live or your room. So some people like to put certain crystals in the four corners of a room if you have a square-shaped room. Other people like to put it out on your front step, or where somebody would cross the threshold of the front door coming into the home. You can use any number of crystals at the front door to even kind of protect and send out energetically the protection of your overall home. You can also put them under a bed, you know, and again, looking for the frequencies, and whatever kind of jumps out at you, you can do that to elevate, you know, the room. Now, some also say they use simple table salt, or, you know, kind of salt, and cross it across the front threshold or around a bed if you're having psychic attacks, or more than that, astral, you know, kind of attacks or things happening in the night. You can, for example, if you want to do this, there are other ways to do it. Don't just take my word for it. You can find other ways probably that aren't as not as harsh as salt, but you just want to make sure the salt isn't coming in contact with metal or anything so that it doesn't corrode. But I guess you could even use beach sand or whatever you want to put an intention with, or just use crystals themselves and put the intention and line it up around your bed or under the bed that you are protected. Now, crystals are just an assistant to your own self and your own power. We're going to get to that at the end of the show. But just remember, they can just help you, you know, and be kind of like a little bit of a security blanket, or just a little companion or an extra boost to what your intention is. You know, as long as you're not strictly dependent on them, they're just meant to be kind of enhancers and helpers. Companions is the word I like to use for any of these things. Okay, let's see where we're going to get to next. Okay, crystals, draw your own. I'm going to link in a video that I did recently that talks about the moon and the sun, and we even get to drawing them from either visual, looking at it, or from memory, or how your heart feels it from the soul. So actually the soul is this the show is called Seeing with the Soul, and it's from October 2nd, and I'll link that below. So I actually was going to do a live drawing to show an example here, but I'm kind of looking at the time on the overall running time on this, and we still have quite a bit to get through, so I'm not going to. But just earlier when I was setting this up, I'll show you. Just like I refer you to the other show, we'll give you the gist of what I'm trying to do. You can get a paper bag from a grocery store, you can get any scrap piece of paper, whatever you want, but it's just a reminder that you can also draw your own crystals. So I just very quickly drew a couple. One from just like, oh, I'll just think of a crystal and draw it. Another one, I actually looked at that other little blue pendulum I showed you earlier and drew it real quick, and instead of blue, I made it green. So here's another thing. Here, I'll show you. Yeah, it was just this one. I just drew it. Okay. So you can, pick up any one of the crystals you already have and just try to draw them like a still life, or you can just draw them from the soul of what you feel that crystal feels like. And you can make up your own. It doesn't even have to exist on the planet. Make up your own, just drawing from your soul and from your memory, and just close your eyes and dream up a crystal of your own, right? Okay, that's all the time I'm going to spend on that one. And then let's get into we're going to get into games. There's a lot of games that involve crystals, believe it or not. You might not have really thought about it, but a lot of chessboards use marble pieces. Well, marble is a gem. This one, it looks like rose quartz or maybe rhodonite or something, and clear quartz or girasol. Girasol or girasol, actually girasol in Spanish means sunflower. It's literally turning to the sun. And could be confused with clear quartz, except that you can't see through it. In clear quartz you can. So it's just like a little muddier version, like not muddy, but kind of a cloudy version of the quartz. Still feels really good. So anyway, that looks like what they're using there. And then you have this game called, I think it's called Mancala, and they use little glass pieces, but you could also use crystals, tumbled crystals, to play that game. And then there's this one, which is literally from the movie The Dark Crystal. I never saw that movie. It's a Muppet-based movie. They have actually this oracle card deck is about that movie that I picked up because I just thought the illustrations were really pretty. And actually, here's one of the other cards in that oracle deck, or tarot deck. Actually, it's a tarot deck. But anyway, there's also even a game based on the whole movie, right? And then you can also create your own games. There's plenty of games you can come up with the use of crystals. So I'll leave it there for now. Those are just some examples. Okay. Then we're going to get into, let me flip this over. Okay. Crystals and dream time. That's a fun one. There are a lot of different crystals that assist with enhancing dreams, or dream time also just means while you're sleeping that you have a crystal companion there to help you work on whatever you want. Again, it's similar, like if you want the healing heart, you want to heal your heart, well, at dream time you want to put rhodonite or the rose quartz near your pillow, and put the intention that, hey, while I'm sleeping, can we work together to heal my heart? And you got a little friend to help you do that, right? Then in other cases, they're showing labradorite as a good stone for dream time. It's kind of a very magical stone. Here's one somebody gifted to me. It's beautiful. You see these things called flash in it, and I'm trying to see if this will flash, because right now, oh, it does, but hang on, let me get the right angle. I'm not in the quite right light to do it, but you can just see, yeah, there you go. It kind of flashes a little bit. It's a beautiful stone. Actually, I have one more over here in the form of a pendant. Give me a moment. And this one I got for myself. It is a beautiful flash. It's a golden flash, and again, I'm kind of losing the light, but you can see it enough, I think. And I love this one because it's polished on one side and then rough on the other. I love the heck out of that it has both properties in one. So the rough crystal and the smooth crystal all in one. And then you have different shapes, also to assist. In this case, they're showing labradorite, little half or crescent moons. In this case, somebody gifted me this, it's moon shaped, so you might want to put that either literally under a pillow next to you or next to your head on a nightstand. I have talked about this in other shows, so I'll make it real quick here, but if you're working with ancestral stuff and you have any affinity toward UK or those areas, UK, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, In this case, I had gotten a palm stone of this. This is Presley Bluestone, and I had just, before I knew about the power of crystals or what they can do in good ways, I just tossed this on my nightstand. Wasn't really thinking about it. Actually, I just wanted to have a little connection to Stonehenge because I had traveled there years and years ago, and just was thinking about it. Couldn't travel at the time, and thought, okay, maybe that will connect me to Stonehenge. Well, little did I know, it connected to me more than that. And I had a powerful dream, one of the most powerful dreams of my life, which now I recognize as I astral traveled. I was there in a kind of my etheric body form. Anyway, it took me straight down to inner earth, or at least an entrance to inner earth. And I had a fascinating experience in that dream. And that was the power of this. I mean, I had no idea that could have done that. And so I took the stone away, and I only brought it back when I didn't mind if I had a very powerful dream. So be mindful if you have crystals lying about. Be very mindful of which ones are near your head area, typically on the nightstand or, very close to you. And that would apply too if you have any beads, crystal beads. I'll show you an example. This is, if you're wearing these, shungite or map jasper, chrysoprase, there's an example of that, if you're wearing it when you go to sleep. And actually, I've got the Presley Bluestone right now, whoops, on me. So, I might be mindful and take that off at night if I didn't want to have a very powerful dream, for example, right? Okay, now we're going to move along. I'm not going to belabor this because it's kind of self-explanatory, but then we also have crystals used in candles and essential oils. Some people infuse essential oils and actually put crystals themselves in soy candles you find on some of the more artistic marketplaces and stuff. And so again, that's just an invitation to maybe look around if you want to do that and get some for yourself or to gift them. And then we have the idea of, the techniques of crystals with cleaning, cleansing, and clearing them. There are many ways. I'm just going to rattle off a few real quick and move on. But you can do it depends what element your particular crystal is calling for. Be mindful that if you're going to clean them in water, there are some that you don't want to do that because they'll degrade or dissolve. So don't use selenite, turquoise, celestite, opal, lapis lazuli, fluorite, or others. You don't want them to degrade. But for the other ones, you can set them in water. You can even use purified water or filtered water if you want. Put them in a bowl, put it outside, let it receive the energies of the sun or the moon, depending on which is, in alignment with you. And you can put some in salt water if they can handle it. You can put them in your bathtub. You can put them in a brook, a creek, or a river, even a waterfall, as long as you can retrieve it again, right? Then you have the element of earth. You can put it in sand. You can just put it in a little bowl of sand, or you can bury it even in the earth, however it feels right to you. And you can put it in fire, purify it like in fire by holding it over a flame, little illustration, hold it over a flame. Or you can pass it, I can't reach my incense burner right now, but you can just pass it over incense smoke as well for the element of fire, right, when the intention of it being purified and cleaned. You can also put it next to a purifying crystal like selenite, if that feels right to you. So you could even just stand up a tower next to the crystal that you want to do that with, or in this case, would I even have like a palm stone? Just set it near selenite. And then you can also just hold it in your hands and hold it near your heart, because you yourself can be the purifier. And hold it, cup it in your hands and hold it near your heart space and put your intention into it that you are balancing it, or that it's pure and, at whatever harmonious frequency it wants to reside at, right? That's possible too. And there are a bunch of other ways. Okay. You can also do sound clearing with a singing bowl. I just brought this one out for an example, but can hold it over the singing bowl, and so many other ways, okay, to do that. Now let's get to the next little topic, and we have crystals. If they are unwanted or no longer needed and you're not going to gift them, and so you can return them to the earth, is kind of my recommendation. So that can be burying them if you want, or finding a tree, or just kind of doing your own intuitive search around different places and just set them down wherever you feel guided to do so. That way you can have the intent that it returns to nature, or, you know, a gift to the fairies, however you want to look at it, or may whoever finds this next, may it be good with, you know, the highest vibration intention of good for them, and be harmonious, you know. May whoever's meant to find them find it, right? That kind of a thing. And there's a bunch of other ways to handle that as well. Some people, you know, might want to bury it in the beach, or put it in the ocean, you know, whatever you feel. All right, then we have crystals, spirits, and beings inside. And that's just something, an image I pulled off the internet. It's not technically what it would look like, but I am going to refer you to an excellent YouTube channel and show, so Sugar Seas, and I'm going to link up a couple of videos of hers that really cover this, where you can actually see like the little beings inside the crystals. It's amazing. And I'm just going to move on from that because I'm going to refer you to two videos. One is a short. It's called Rainbows of Fantasy and Fae Petrified Light from August 2023. And there's another one that says, that I'm going to get to in a minute, and I'll just talk about it now because it's also Sugar Sea's channel. And it's reference to crystals in movies. And this one says, Crystals are the Doorways, the Gateways, Inner Earth Edition. And that's from July 2024. Okay, so anyway, we're going to refer you over to her channel where you actually see beings in the crystals. It's amazing. She also finds beings like in caves and walls, cave walls and other things. So I highly recommend you check that channel out for those things. Okay, then we're going to get to fluorescence. Because I'm also realizing not only the time of the video, but I'm losing my light. We're going to head towards sunset. So we have crystals, fluorescence, and UV reactive. I don't have any examples of this, but they're so cool. I've seen them at a gem and mineral show where they get like this little black light and shine it on the crystal, and it just goes beautifully fluorescent. Very cool. So I highly recommend, if you can't buy any of your own, you might want to check that out at a gem and mineral show local to you if one comes through, or to a mineralogist gemology club. You know, they may meet regularly in your town, or, you know, you may want to start one and start looking into these things. Let me see, some examples of these rocks that do this are aragonite, opal, calcite, and euporites. This is an example of euporite in the lower corner, and there are others. Okay, then we're going to get to crystals in the movies. And there's so many movies. I've only just grabbed a few here that I could think of right at the top of my head. But the more I think about it, oh my gosh, there's crystal references in so many movies. So here, let me get to my little pointer. Sorry for the camera moving all over the place. Here we go. Okay, so this is actually kind of apropos. It's kind of getting dark because now we're talking about movies, and people usually like watching movies at night. At least I do. Okay, so the first one at the top is the Superman movie. If I can get my pointer anywhere near the card. Here we go. Sorry about that. Here's Superman up in the corner, right? And he's got these jumbo crystals. Well, hello, that was a little hint drop to the Nika Caves of Mexico, turns out. So this was from 1978. Then you have 1977 was Star Wars, talking about kyber crystals as being the thing that powered the lightsabers of the Jedi, right? And actually, funnily enough, those were pure and white, right? And they create beautiful colors. And the ones belonging to the dark side of the Force are like Labmade crystals. I find that hysterical. At least that's what I remember from the arc of Star Wars. Anyway, this particular example that I'm pointing to is a kyber crystal, and I'm sorry, I lost my page. I'm trying to get to the right thing. Number 28. Okay. So this is from the movies A Star Wars Story called Rogue One. And in this one, the character Chirrut Imwe says to another character, Jin, who's wearing a kyber crystal around her neck, he says to her, the strongest stars have hearts of kyber, talking about this crystal and the power and the purity of it. And she had it around her neck, and Chirrut was actually a blind person, but he could sense that she had this crystal around her neck because he was using his intuition. Okay, now, then we have this one for anybody that watched the newer Wonder Woman movies. It was Wonder Woman 1984, and the whole thing about it was the main character. I don't want to do too much of a spoiler alert, but yeah, if you don't want to know, maybe skip ahead. The quote-unquote villain in the story, he became what was called the Dreamstone, and they did a whole thing joking about how citrine was used in a lot of fake ancient relics, copies of ancient reproductions of ancient relics and stuff. So the joke was about citrine, which that was a little picture of the artifact that they were calling the Dreamstone for the center of that movie. And of course, there are plenty of other movies that incorporate crystals. I'm blanking on others, but you may think of some. And for fun, you might want to put some in the comment section below. However, I've been severely shadow banned from the moment I started my channel. So if it doesn't come through, feel free to also email me if you wish. Okay, now we're going to talk about cymatics and frequencies. And I'm just going to touch on this because we're going to move through this a little quicker now. So cymatics, it's when you get like a plate and you can put anything like sand crystals or salt crystals and you vibrate the plate at a certain frequency and look at what it forms. These gorgeous patterns, that's called cymatics. So that's the amazing thing with frequencies put on top of the frequency of the crystal itself, and it creates wondrous things, right? So there's a lot of channels out there where you can look up some of the actual experiments done, and you can see in real time, like just little salt mass or sand mass, whatever, starting to form the shapes as they do it. It's pretty fascinating. I'm not going to refer to any specifically, but I invite you to go check that out. Okay, and then we're nearing the end. If you can bear with me just a little bit longer. So we did touch on, actually let me flip this over. We touched on balancing spaces and rooms, or at least your, the area around you. And in this case, this is just another example. Instead of putting crystals in the four corners of a room or a certain area of a room that may feel a little low vibed, in this little example, they've just put it in the center, it looks like, of the entire space, and just charged it up and put it in, arranged their crystals like in a crystal grid in the center of this space. I just thought that was beautiful, whoever created that one. Okay, and then we have meditation. Again, I invite you to look up any number of videos online that feel high vibe to you. If there's a sketchy vibe, then find something else. But crystals absolutely can be used in meditation, especially in combination with candles. It's very beautiful. And you might want to throw in herbs like lavender, or whatever feels right to you in the moment. What am I thinking of? Eucalyptus and other things. Depends on what you want to bring in, or peppermint essential oils if you're not allergic to pepper and peppermint. Just whatever calls to you. You can combine it as well as you select different crystals and kind of use them as a focal point. You can take any number of them, like the green one, or any number of those, whatever you're feeling at the moment. A lot of people, I think, do use amethyst and some of the clear ones, but whatever feels right to you. And again, look for other ideas online, and especially I like to look around YouTube for those kinds of things. Okay, then we have a really fun topic called crystals from space. I have to do it like one of those movies, like crystals from space. So we have things that are coming in off of meteorites or forming when the meteorite hits. So moldavite is something that does come off a meteorite. Now, I don't resonate with moldavite at all, but there are others who swear by it and says it really has intense, amazing healing properties. But for me, if I pick one up, I just don't want to be around it. So I guess you could call it like my kryptonite. No, it's not that bad. It's not going to debilitate me, but I just kind of like, I don't want to be around it so much. I don't know why. It's just intuitive. Is it going to kill me if someone put it near me? No. It's just that if I went to go get one, I would not select that. Now others say, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. So again, you got to see if it's right for you. Then there's Campo del Cielo. And actually I did purchase some once, and that comes from areas near Argentina. And I got to say, I had to get rid of it because for me, it was attracting some kind of negative astral entities. And so I don't know if it was the ring itself, that something was, bad energy was put on it, or it was the properties of the Campo del Cielo itself. All I know is I had to get rid of it, and I've never had to do that before in my life. So I would just use a little bit of caution personally with anything coming from space. And if you do get some of these things, remember to clear it, bless it, make sure it's of just good intent, when you keep it. And maybe that's all I had to do with this. I just didn't know enough maybe back then. I just knew that, hey, if I'm attracting some weird things from the astral, no thank you. I will pass that on, pass it over, right? Okay, now we're getting to other interesting, in quotes, and rare crystals. And these are just what I find to be interesting or rare. It's not a measure of what's on the planet, what you can procure or not. So again, that's why I put the interesting category. I already talked about the chrysanthemum stone before. That thing just fascinates the heck out of me. It's a black stone and it has these bursts that look like a chrysanthemum flower, and I just find them fascinating. So I haven't held one, so I don't know if I get a good vibe off of it, and I recommend you would do that too. But it's just, I just find amazing. Okay, but we'll move on. So I always love and I'm fascinated by the flashes and the labradorite, and I showed you one that was more blue and gold, and this one goes into pinks and purples. Then we have black opal, which can be sourced from Australia or Ethiopia. There's different kinds of colors and flash found with them. I just find them beautiful. You can just look into it and get lost forever in the flashes. And there's a really fun one, and all of these are great for healing in different ways. But up here is Bumblebee Jasper, and it's just what it says. It's kind of reminds you of a bumblebee. It can be into the yellows or the oranges with black and white and grays. It just depends, and it just has a very happy vibe to it. So anyway, I just find these to be my personal interesting, and some can be rare, I think, with the black opal. I did look up and try to find a black opal, and I only found one online quite a while ago. And this one happens to be a little more tumbled, but you can still see, even though I hardly have light, I'm losing the light towards sunset here, but you can still see a little bit of the purple flash. And this is just like a little chip, because it does get pretty pricey depending on where it's sourced, but I just love it. Doesn't matter to me, I just love it. Okay, now let's continue on, and we only have a few more to go. This I'm not going to spend too much time on. I'm just going to refer you to look at a previous show of mine called Sky Friendly, and this is a real photo, and I just put a little bit of enhancement on it, which I show the progression, and I teach you how to find these things in the clouds yourself. But it just, this reminds me of like an opalescent gem sitting there on the clouds. And any of my earlier videos you go to, because I've been doing sky observations and tracking sky anomalies and cloak and craft and whatnot for over 4.5 years now, and you'll find that if I have like only one like on some of those earlier shows, they so shadow banned me it wasn't even funny. So I always kind of look at that as a compliment, because that means there must have been something really telling in there to look into more. Anyway, I'll put that in. That was my show number 125, and I'll put that in the description below. Then we only have a couple more points to cover, and perfect, because I'm losing my light here, the sunlight. So then we have gifting crystals. So that was cloaking craft, crystalline craft, looking like crystalline craft. Then we have crystals, gifting of the stones. There are so many different things you can gift. Not only some of the, just the actual stones that we've been talking about, and then we have also, I didn't even get to all the jewelry I brought out to just show many examples of real and artificial crystals. But yeah, we got necklaces, and the bracelets, the beaded bracelets are always nice. Crystals themselves, pendulums, any of the household items. But then we have palm stones and the spheres that I showed. And then we also have plastic ones. And normally I don't like the vibe off of these, but you know what? You can put your intention on even plastic stuff, and people can feel the good energy coming when you gift it. So I actually at one time put little packets together for some school kids, and these are just some, like crystals that you put at the bottom of a fish tank. That's how they sell it. And then I just printed out my own little thing, like Sparkle Power Pack. You can do any number of things and put it together, and you hand these out, and the whole intention of whether they're lab-made or fake plastic or real is to lift the vibration of the room and uplift people, and that's what it does when you give things out. Speaking of that too, I gifted these. Had to be at the hospital over the past couple of years for loved ones. I won't get into it why, but let's just say yes, it was because certain things were injected into them that shouldn't have been. But I won't get political or anything here. However, what I did to counteract that low vibeness of what was going on over the past few years is I would get these little sparkle bags of any number of colors. Actually I have other things in here, but there's all kinds of colors. They're very colorful. And then I would get some of these crystals in bulk and just put one per bag in a bag. And then I would give them to the staff at the hospitals and the medical facilities as a little thank you, a token of appreciation for taking care of my loved ones. And they would be very happy. And even if they didn't know exactly what they did, it's just knowing, again, you've got like a little crystal companion. And then I would let them intuitively pick, just a bag and whatever, and they would always end up with the right one. And then on top of that, these in the bag can be put near a patient or whatever, and that will start helping with healing. So it was really rather beautiful and magical what started happening, because I gave out probably hundreds of these things to different staff and people as a thank you and to lift the vibration, right? Okay, now let's see, we're almost done, as I said before. Then we also have crystal inspired gifting, and not only what I just mentioned, but also t-shirts. So this was a really funny one of a Chewbacca, like a Chewbacca type thing, so like a Sasquatch riding a pink dolphin with a crystal and a UFO. It was actually pretty clever. Then there's this pink Himalayan salt lamps, you know, and then they can, I'm not a fan of the artificial like LED colors, but you know, maybe if that feels right to you, or the pyramid shape that works for you. I covered the bath crystals. There's also just like these crystal ball type things. This has like a whale floating in there. And then these are just some funny other little things on t-shirts. It says, I love you. I'm a rock star, right? And if you're a real rock hound and go out getting crystals on your own, this one says, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And it's a type of thing with the rocks, so I'll invite you to look that up, right? So there's just lots of different ways you can find fun things that are crystal inspired to gift. Then we kind of covered this before, but it's like where you find crystals, right? So you can just start with wherever you are. Go online and see who sells crystals. You know, look up a metaphysical shop, or just put crystals, where to find them, and then voila, there you go. And they can be in some very unusual places too. Depending on what country you're in. You might find them in a gas station. You might find them, you know, all kinds of places. Anyway, there's also getting your own, which they call rock hounding. If you're just kind of a hobbyist, you know, at trying to go find rocks and gems, you might just want to get yourself your little, you know, pickaxe and, you know, some very basic tools, you know, maybe a shovel and some high rubber boots or whatever, if you're going to be washing things off. But if you look up rock hounding in that whole world, you'll find out, you know, different things to use for that. And you know, depending on where you live, there's going to be different kinds of gems available to go dig out of the rocks for. In Florida, there's not too much very exciting, you know, there's a lot of fossilized rocks and stuff, but for the real like beautiful colorful gemstones people go for, it's not really the state for that, other than like the pure quartz I talked about on the beach in Siesta Key, Florida. Okay, and now we're coming to an exciting conclusion, because we're on number 38 and we're only doing 40 of these only. All right, now we get to the fun topic that I mentioned to you at the very beginning. Crystals. You and I are the crystal. Okay, remember that. We are the crystalline form. Actually, we're moving toward the crystalline form. So it is said that in ascension, a lot of us that are going through a great awakening, kind of seeing that there's more to life than just doing a job and dying, so to speak, and paying taxes. You know, start asking the question, who am I? Who am I really? I know I'm a part of something bigger. I know home is somewhere else rather than my physical house, but I don't quite understand what's happening. Well, you're going through an awakening, and that means that we're aware that we're on a 3D earth and planet, but the collective consciousness is seeking higher forms and vibrations and knows that there's a 5D and higher, kind of like returning back to the heavenly levels, right? But while we're still in our physical form. And that means a lot of people are having what's called ascension symptoms. Your body's reacting strangely to food lately, or it's having weird aches and pains that really shouldn't be happening. Well, there are two YouTube channels. I'm going to refer to specific videos as well for this. We are transforming into like more from a carbon-based body, or however you want to describe it, more 3D body, to a crystalline body. That means that maybe you're finding the foods that were heavy foods you no longer want anymore. You feel like your body just wants to be lighter and lighter. That may mean that you really want to do intermittent fasting, or you just feel like you want to do more liquids mixed in within a lot of heavy foods. That may or may not apply to you. There's no right or wrong with it. And it just means too that you might have some kind of food resistance or allergies to certain foods, because the food industries are putting more and more toxic chemicals in them, and so your body's rejecting that, right? So anyway, two great channels to look into further are Nicola Light on YouTube, Food and Your Ascension Journey from November 2024, and any of the content on higher vibrations with Mela, live Q&As, or guest talks. I did appear on one with her there, but I just love her live Q&As and other meditations and other free phone calls and gatherings she has. that talk about, hey, what's going on? Who's having what ascension symptoms? And anyway, those are great things to look at as our body is moving from a heavier or 3D base to a 5D, higher vibrational based body, okay? And going back to you and I are the crystal. All of these other crystals are just kind of, like I mentioned before, enhancements or companions or little tools, just like little extra little divination tools, like you would have oracle cards or your pendulum, or just a way to connect in with something higher and something, you know, higher vibed. And so we ourselves are a pure crystal. You know it yourself if you've walked into a room and you have that effect where somebody says, wow, you just lit up the room. Well, you're just bringing your pure, beautiful energy, you, as that pure crystal idea and energy, right? And we also can transform. You might be here on this earth to be what's kind of like a transformer of sorts, where you're the bridge bringing in higher vibed energies from the 5D level, and you transform them, or just like in electrical talk, you're like a three-phase step-down transformer, and you step down the high energies, and they bridge through your body, and you bring them down here to 3D Earth. That's what a lot of energy healers can do. I'm one of them. I can bring in higher frequencies and bring them in through and heal someone, and they exit right out. But it's just, I'm used as a conduit from the divine to come in and help people when that's called for. I've had that successfully on a couple people, but that's if you're intended to be healed in that way. If it doesn't happen every time, it's just is that your particular body wasn't meant to receive that kind of healing in that moment. But anyway, it just is a reminder that we are the crystal, can be the crystal, and if we are open to, flowing in that way and just having the intent to light up the room. There were times when I, like I mentioned, going to the hospital, I would show up, and if I could remember to do it, I would say, okay, as I walk through this hospital, I'm going to light up, and if I can heal them through my love and coming through me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to imagine sunshine and beautiful light moving through this entire hospital, making everyone happy and smile, and healing them if possible, right, by God's will. So you can start playing with stuff like that. It can even just be the grocery store. If you go to a grocery store, when I walk in, this whole box is just going to light up like beautiful sunshine, and everyone's going to be happy. And then sometimes you forget, or you can even be in bad mood, and divine will work through you and shine that light out, and you might have people looking at you like in a dazed and childlike wonder, because you're bringing that light whether you realize it or not. And vice versa, you might be receiving it off of somebody else and go, wow, why do I just feel so good? You're basking in the glow of the divine spark is what's happening in those moments. All right, so I think, okay, we're going to wrap this up pretty quick. As you can see, by my candlelight is looking more and more beautifully with the glow. That means we're not having as much outer daylight, and just in time too, because we're on our last little card here. So this is, well, what are your experiences? Do you have any insights? Do you care to share anything regarding crystals? And again, as I mentioned, I've been heavily shadow banned on this channel, so not all comments show up for whatever reason, however they do it. It doesn't interest me. What does interest me is that this reaches anybody, even one person, or reaches whoever it's meant to. And also, yeah, so if you have anything you want to share, it probably try to leave a comment here, but otherwise feel free to email me, and I'll put that in the description area below, and email me some of your experiences, and if you like, I can even read them out, or I might start doing interviews or podcasts, kind of like shared talks. I don't want to call it interviews, coming up, and if I do that, that'll be a beautiful place to do it. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and I would love to hear of other experiences that people might have had, and if you wish to share them, we'll do it on this channel. All right, so last and least, maybe not least, but last for now, I want to thank you for stopping by here, whether you're new or returning to this channel, because this will air on YouTube. Maybe I'll use this in other applications, but for right now, I want to thank each and every one of you. I put this slide there, on purpose, because, as many as there are crystals of and us, we're also individual, and we all have this full range of color and vibrations to play with on any given day, and we are human and go through our emotions, so we may exhibit days where we're more blue and days where we're more sunny, but it just makes up to go back to the very beginning main point I had of this whole kaleidoscope that we are here, and that we are really all one in love, one loving being, I believe. And I heard once in a book, Conversations with God, by Neil Donald Walsh, he said something in a live lecture that I really hold on to, because it does really sum it up. He says, there's just one of us in the room, and it really is like we are of the divine, but the little divine, God sparks, of light come into us in the heart space. So, but we all go back to the one source. We are of the one source, I believe anyway. And so I want to thank not only each and every one of you, but the one that is us, and that we're sharing this time and space together through this talk. So thanks for being here. And as I always sign off, I love to say tremendous peace and love to you, Lavender Sky Panther or Varleigh, however you wish. Take care, everyone. Bye. Bye.